I used to have this deeply held belief that I'm an ugly, disgusting waste of time. I was harboring self-hate.
We are so excited today. We have Colette that has come to us from Austin, Texas, who is going to be talking a little bit today about her childhood experiences and where she is today. Thanks so much for joining us today.
It's my absolute pleasure to be here.
So let's dive right in.
My story actually starts when I was a freshman in college. I was a super nerdy 19-year-old valedictorian who had a 4-year academic scholarship. And I dropped out to work as a call girl. That was the most liberating decision that I had ever made because all the decisions prior to that had been made for me. It was okay to express myself growing up if being smart, which I was, or an athlete, which I was, but the free-spirited, sensitive, emotional little girl, not so much. My dad's default setting was anger. My mom's was anxiety and anxiousness. And as an empath, I felt it all. But what I didn't feel was safe. I didn't feel empowered. And so making that decision at 19 felt like power and control for the first time in my life.
Share with us a little bit about the environment that you grew up in.
Well, the environment that I grew up in, my dad would drink. Now I can have a lot of compassion for him, but at the time I just felt scared. My mom felt the same way, and her way of responding was to sort of suppress and deny and do the best she could and stay positive. The anxiety from my mom and the anger from my dad just made me sort of retreat and hide and not feel safe. I remember a specific time when my dad would come home after drinking and make a bunch of noise and would wake up my mom. And sometimes it would get to the point where my mom would come into my room and wake me up and get me dressed and say, "We're leaving." And sometimes we'd get all the way out to the car before my dad would convince her to stay. And then other times we'd go driving around. My mom would be chain smoking cigarettes, crying, and I would be trying to console her, feeling confused, angry at my dad, saddened and uncertain, just scared. Early on, when I dropped out of college to work as a call girl, and I went into that clueless, this was early stage sexual self-expression for me. And so it was more fumbling through and, again, doing what I was told. Well, I developed some intelligence and some experience. The transition was from sort of just giving myself to someone to actually inviting them into a deeper conversation, to real intimacy, to a legitimate full practice coaching and mentoring couples and individuals.
What was your pivotal moment in there?
I developed this tumor. This was the pivotal moment. I realized as I'm walking down the spice aisle in the grocery store, and this good-looking man is approaching. And normally I would, make eye contact, maybe wink at him and say hello. And instead, that day, I averted my eyes. I looked away.
Why?
I didn't want him to see me this way. I walked out of that aisle with tears in my eyes because I hated the way that I looked. So even though I was helping people be free and be seen and be heard and be expressed, I was harboring self-hate. That day I realized I had to face myself and really reevaluate how I saw myself.
What are some of the top 3 tips that you could give somebody?
The very first thing is love yourself. And that's what was missing for me. Unconditional self-love and acceptance. When we can show up without any fears, without any hidden shadowy parts of ourselves, then what we have access to is real intimacy. And then the way that gets expressed in relationship can be really magical.
You have a tumor and that it's going from the bottom of your brain to your tongue. What are the first thoughts that are going through your head when you hear that?
My life is over as I know it. I went into a deeper depression. I call it the black hole of suck. Okay, so the dark hole of suck was this fear-based, depressive state that I hung out in for, the better part of 3 years, all the while seeking that approval, that affection, that unconditional love from other people. And the only reason that I am where I am today is because I gave myself the love that I so longed for from other people. Through those processes, through those really difficult times, I learned who I was, or who I am, I should say.
Yes.
That beacon of light. Now there's nothing that stops me from being that in the world, not a fucking tumor. I do believe that all of it stems from the beliefs that we have for ourselves, the lack of love that we have for ourselves.
As society gets, faster and faster, and people are really looking to numb their pain. Tell me what you mean about that.
I think the numbing out keeps us from healing ourselves, loving ourselves, accepting ourselves, and then lighting the path forward for others who want to do the same.
Tell me, where do you find some solutions, and where are you really looking to make an impact that is pretty vast?
Kelly, I really do believe that it boils down to we have to dive into what I call the soul wound.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the part of ourself that we would rather keep hidden, that we think is absolutely fundamentally unlovable. And I believe it is the catalyst for our spiritual evolution. It is what is at play when all of the messed up shit that we do in the world is the result of the soul wound. And so when we heal ourselves at a soul level, we know who we are, and we are able to face the challenges head on, not turning our eyes away, not hiding, but unmasking that magic that we all have inside of us. And I believe that's what I'm here to help people do.
Thanks for coming today.
Oh, girl. Thank you
you
for having me.
Great. These women's stories are so impactful. Arras Sisters creates opportunities for women.